Hello, beautiful people. We are going to be reviewing this worksheet on mental compulsions. This is obviously part of our workshop on mental compulsions, but I know not everyone was able to attend. And we want to still be able to give you access to a little bit of the content that we produce there, be able to give you a chance to practice some self-awareness and learn a little bit more about what's happening in your brain so that we can then work on that. And so this can be a refresher if you did attend that workshop, or it can just be a way to practice some of this on your own. But like I said, today we're talking about mental compulsions. Mental compulsions are so common in the OCD community, and oftentimes they feel very automatic. It kind of just feels like they happen on their own, but the truth is they don't. The truth is that our mental compulsions are behaviors that we engage in, which means they're behaviors that we can change. So to kind of define mental compulsions, let me share my screen. And again, this is the worksheet that all of you will access. Mental compulsions are anything that you do internally, so in your own head, to reduce, neutralize, or eradicate your distress associated with your OCD obsessions and intrusive thoughts. So the obsessions and intrusive thoughts are pieces we don't get to control. When we try to control those, when we try to control our distress, that's when things become compulsive. And just like any physical compulsion, whether something is compulsive or not is going to depend on the intention. So, for instance, counting is a really, really common mental compulsion. People might count in their heads. And we also might count non-compulsively, obviously, right? Counting is also just a part of life. And so it's all going to boil down to whether the intention is to get rid of our distress or not. Is my intention in this moment to count how many apples I have left, or is it to drown out my intrusive thoughts, right? That's going to make the distinction between whether something is compulsive or not. Is your intention to review something that happened so that you can make appropriate apologies and move forward? Or is it to fix something and get rid of your distress? Is your intention to pray to connect with a higher power because that's something you believe in? Or is it to pray to get rid of your distress, right? It's all going to depend on the intention. And typically, our compulsions feel a lot more urgent and specific. And so you might find it harder to delay or walk away from the behavior than if it was just something you were doing for fun. So it does take some patience as we work to unwind this. I often say, that our mental compulsions and any of our compulsions really were not built overnight. They didn't just, wake up one morning and we had all these compulsions. And so that means that just because you're walking through this worksheet doesn't mean they're just going to go away either, right? This whole worksheet is to gain some awareness, but there's still a lot of work ahead of us that takes some patience. And luckily, we're here at NoCD to support you through that. But do just want to mention that this is something that takes time, and so we have to be kind to ourselves. We're going to be walking through kind of three main chunks of mental compulsions, but it's important to recognize that this is not a comprehensive list. Again, mental compulsions are anything we're doing to neutralize our distress, meaning it could truly be anything that we are doing to neutralize our distress. And so we really just list these out to help us gain awareness for what this could look like. But again, this is not comprehensive. There's obviously other ways this can show up. So we're going to be talking about, again, these three kind of major chunks here. There's mental review or rumination. This is one we hear talked about a lot. This is where we are replaying an event, memory, or past conversation to find a sense of certainty about what it means. We could also be replaying a future conversation, events, or even hypothetical situations to try to find a sense of certainty about what it means. We might be revisiting thoughts, feelings, or sensations to see if they're still present or distressing, right? This is anything that's happening in our brains that feels really cyclical. We're just returning to the same thoughts. If you think about the breakdown of the word rumination, that's what happens when a cow is eating and re-eating its food, right? It just kind of eats it, regurgitates it, eats it again. It's not really getting anywhere, right? It's just kind of repetitive. And that's why I note here that this prefix re is really important to recognize. We are replaying, reviewing, revisiting, and no matter how many times we return to it, there's always going to be more uncertainty. There's because life is always uncertain, right? So there's always going to be more here, but we aren't really solving any problems. It often feels like we are, but at its core, we're just trying to get away from our distress. So that's kind of one potential category for mental compulsions. Another is thought neutralization, blocking, or distracting. These are things that unfortunately sometimes people learn in therapy. They're taught to try to get away from these intrusive thoughts. But what that does is it just teaches our brain to fear those intrusive thoughts, right? Why would we run away from something that wasn't scary, and that wasn't harmful? It kind of teaches us that that's what we need to do. So sometimes rather than trying to figure out the thoughts, we just try to avoid them completely. This distraction can be really anything. It could be singing a song, it could be talking to a friend, could be listening to music, right? So many ways we might just try to get away from these thoughts, or we might also try to cancel or block the thoughts, get rid of them, repeat, chant, or even, replace the thought with a positive thought or emotion instead. Again, just teaches our brain that that's what we have to do to survive, and that's not the case. These intrusive thoughts, in and of themselves, are not threats. Um, and then this last one that we're going to be talking about here, and again, this is not a comprehensive list, but this is self-reassurance. So this might be ritualizing positive affirmations, comforting statements, prayer, or other religious forms of assurance, right? So many ways we might try to reassure ourselves. Sometimes we think that these are coping mechanisms, but again, just teaches our bodies and brains that that's what we have to do. We also might be reviewing previously acquired reassurance, such as reassurance provided by friends, family, therapists, religious leaders, right? Super important to recognize this piece as well. And then this last section of this worksheet is really one for that self-awareness, practicing kind of being a little bit introspective here, noticing what mental compulsions do you recognize showing up. And again, don't try to limit it just to the ones on this list. There are plenty others that maybe you've never even heard of or never heard a label for, but it's still serving this purpose of eradicating our distress, right? So write down what mental compulsions you recognize, also, then write down what are the thoughts, feelings, or uncertainties that you are trying to avoid by engaging in these. Are there certain fears, certain threats, certain sensations that we're trying to get away from? Just kind of give yourself a second to write these down and sit with them. Practice not running away from them and just noticing them. The last piece of this worksheet, and again, this whole workshop serves for awareness, but there's obviously work ahead. And this is asking, how can you work to choose long-term relief over short-term certainty the next time you catch yourself in these compulsions? So the next time these thoughts come on and you find yourself wanting to turn toward the compulsions, what are some ways you can instead practice sitting with these thoughts? Right? That's really the purpose of ERP. That's what we do here at NoCD. And so I'd encourage you to, again, take yourself through this worksheet, give yourself a chance to really feel into it, really think about it, and then, to make the next steps. These are not things that go away overnight, but they are things that can go away. We can learn to accept these intrusive thoughts and not to view them as so much of a threat. And so I always encourage you guys to make a 15-minute call if you would like to. We do have, those free calls where you're able to talk with some member of our care team. They're all really amazing. Many of them have gone through OCD themselves, and they can kind of talk you through what this process looks like and see if it's something that aligns for you. But regardless, I hope that you are able to get a little something out of this worksheet. We would love to see you in our next workshop, and hopefully, everyone is having a good day out there. Keep it up. Just the fact that you're even signing up for these type of emails, to me is really empowering. It's just really beautiful to see because I know how isolating OCD can feel. I know that firsthand as someone who's dealt with it. And so I just seriously want to cheer you on and say, like, congrats for taking these steps. I always think that it's those very first baby steps at the beginning that are the hardest to take. And so I just am so rooting for all of you as you're making some really big strides here and doing a lot of difficult work. We're proud of you. We're all rooting for you here at No CD. And again, hope you're having a good rest of your day. Bye, everyone.